Crimson Dawn, Rise of the Shadow Wolf. A world ravaged by the undead faces a new, terrifying threat. An alpha werewolf, commanding an army of undead hybrids, unleashes a reign of terror, transforming humans into its own kind. Amidst the chaos, Captain Sarah Knox and a band of survivors fight desperately for a glimmer of hope. Rumors of a safe haven where vampires protect humans spark a perilous journey in search of sanctuary. As alliances shift and enemies grow stronger, humanity teeters on the brink of extinction. Dive into this gripping saga where survival hangs in the balance, and the line between savior and destroyer blurs in the shadow of the Alpha's howl. Crimson Dawn, Rise of the Shadow Wolf, a tale of resilience, terror, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. Chapter 1. The Mutation. The final stand at the camp was a scene of desperation and chaos. As the undead swarmed over the last defences, the sage, the eldest and wisest of the ancient beings, made a fateful decision. His form expanded into a massive shadow, soaring upwards before crashing back to Earth with a force that rippled through the night. As the shadow wave surged outward, every undead it touched fell lifeless, their corrupt animation extinguished. Meanwhile, on the fringes of the camp, a lone werewolf, a remnant of another age, fought fiercely against the undead horde. Its form was a terrifying spectacle, massive and feral, yet it was overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. As it fought, the werewolf suffered numerous bites, its body beginning to undergo a horrific transformation, a merging of the undead curse with its own primal nature. Just as the werewolf started to succumb to the zombie virus, the sage's sacrificial shadow wave reached the outskirts. The dark energy, designed to purge the undead curse, swept over the battlefield. When it collided with the transforming werewolf, an unforeseen reaction occurred. The shadow energy, instead of purging the virus, disrupted the transformation process, creating something entirely new, a mutant undead werewolf. Its body, caught between states, became a grotesque fusion of zombie and beast. The creature's eyes glowed with an unnatural light as it rose, larger and more menacing than before. With a guttural, otherworldly howl that echoed through the night, the zombie werewolf stood as a testament to the unintended consequences of the sage's sacrifice. The shadow energy, meant to be a final act of salvation, had inadvertently given birth to a new kind of horror. As the survivors gathered around the fallen sage, mourning their savior, they remained unaware of the new creature birthed at the edge of their sanctuary. The chapter closed with the zombie werewolf disappearing into the dark, its howl a chilling portent of the dangers still lurking in the world. Chapter 2. The Alpha's Call. The hybrid werewolf, a monstrous amalgamation of undead and beast, roamed the devastated landscape. Its new form rendered it immune to the undead's attacks, a lone predator in a world overrun by zombies. As it traveled through the decaying remnants of civilization, it encountered a group of the undead. The ensuing battle was swift and brutal. The hybrid moved with a ferocity that was unmatched, tearing through the zombies with ease. Its bites were lethal, yet it remained unaffected by the virus, a unique creature in this apocalyptic world. As the hybrid continued its aimless wander, it stumbled upon a sight that stopped it in its tracks. In a clearing stood the original werewolf, an alpha, massive and imposing, its presence exuding power and authority. Accompanying the alpha were 3 smaller werewolves, each formidable in their own right. The alpha, with piercing eyes and an aura of ancient wisdom, regarded the hybrid with a curious intensity. It was a creature of intelligence and instinct, fierce and terrifying in its majesty. The hybrid, sensing the significance of this encounter, felt an inexplicable bond forming. The alpha werewolf represented the origin of its cursed bloodline, a connection that ran deep through every werewolf. As the alpha approached, the hybrid felt a surge of recognition and reverence. It bowed its head in servitude, acknowledging the alpha as its leader. The alpha, accepting this gesture, let out a low, commanding howl, a call that resonated with primal authority. The chapter concluded with the 5 werewolves, the alpha, its companions, and the newly inducted hybrid uniting as a pack. With a newfound sense of purpose, they raced off into the night, their forms blending into the shadows. The howls of the pack echoed across the land, a haunting melody that signaled the rise of a new force. In the world of Crimson Dawn, rise of the Shadow Wolf. This unlikely union of beast and undead heralded a new chapter in the saga, where the lines between hunter and hunted were forever blurred. Chapter 3. The Impenetrable Sanctuary. Miles from the roaming paths of the hybrid werewolf, nestled in a valley surrounded by steep hills, lay a well-fortified human camp. This sanctuary, known as Haven, was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience in the face of the apocalypse. As a group of zombies shuffled towards its walls, the defenders dispatched them with practiced ease, their defenses holding strong against the relentless tide of the undead. The main characters of Haven were a diverse group, each with their own story of survival and loss. There was Captain Sarah Knox, the leader of the camp, known for her strategic mind and unwavering determination. Beside her stood Dr. Liam Chen, the camp's medical expert, whose knowledge of science and medicine had been crucial in fortifying their defenses. Maya, a young engineer, was the creative genius behind many of the camp's innovative protective measures. As they watched the defeated zombies from the safety of their walls, Sarah remarked, "I've heard rumors of a group of survivors who allied with vampires. They say those creatures can easily kill the undead." Maya nodded, her eyes thoughtful. Having allies like that wouldn't hurt, she mused. But look at what we've built here. Our sanctuary is impenetrable. Dr. Chen chimed in, explaining the details of their defenses. Our walls are reinforced with steel and concrete, standing 12 feet high, with electrified barriers at the top. We have watchtowers at strategic points, equipped with long-range weapons. The only entry is through a heavily guarded gate with multiple security checks. The surrounding area is cleared, Sarah added. No trees or high structures that could be used to gain access. We've dug deep trenches filled with spikes and traps. Motion sensors and surveillance cameras cover every possible approach. It's not just the physical barriers. We've created a multi-layered defense system. As the chapter concluded, the inhabitants of Haven went about their daily routines, secure in the knowledge that the camp was a bastion of safety in a world overrun by the undead. The rumors of the Vampire Alliance lingered in their conversations, a curious blend of skepticism and intrigue. Yet, as night fell over Haven, its people rested easy, confident in the strength of their fortress, unaware of the new, unforeseen threats that roamed the world outside their impenetrable walls. Chapter 4. The Howl and the Horde. The tranquility of Haven was abruptly shattered when a lookout shouted an urgent warning. "Incoming attack! Look there on the hill!" The scene shifted to a pack of wolves in the distance, silhouetted against the hillside. There were approximately 10 of them, an ominous sight against the setting sun. Through binoculars, the Haven guards noticed something unsettling. The wolves stood on 2 legs, their postures eerily humanoid. One, significantly larger and more imposing, dominated the pack. The others, though fearsome, bore the grotesque marks of decay, a chilling blend of werewolf and zombie. Captain Sarah Knox approached the lookout, taking the binoculars to see for herself. As she watched, the wolf pack began advancing toward Haven. Just then, a small horde of zombies, drawn by the commotion, appeared in the pack's path. "This should be interesting," she muttered, expecting a clash between the two monstrous forces. However, what unfolded next defied their expectations. The hybrid werewolves, seemingly unnoticed by the undead, launched into a vicious assault. They moved with terrifying efficiency, their claws and teeth rending through the zombie horde. The sight of the undead werewolves tearing through their zombie counterparts was both horrific and mesmerizing. Within minutes, the entire horde lay decimated, the ground littered with lifeless bodies. The alpha werewolf let out a victorious howl, a sound that sent shivers down the spines of Haven's defenders. Amidst the carnage, two of the fallen zombies began to convulse violently. Their bodies, recently infected with the virus and still coursing with the lycanthropic curse, underwent a grotesque transformation, reshaping into new, undead werewolf hybrids. The chapter delved into the explanation behind this selective transformation. Out of the numerous undead cut down and bitten, only these two had the unique combination of a recent zombie infection and the lingering werewolf curse in their veins. The contact with the undead werewolf's infectious essence acted as a catalyst, igniting the latent lycanthropic curse and giving rise to two new monstrosities. As the chapter concluded, the defenders of Haven watched in stunned silence, realizing that the threat they faced had evolved into something far more dangerous and unpredictable. The sight of the newly transformed undead werewolves joining the pack sent a clear message. The rules of survival in this apocalyptic world were changing, and new, terrifying creatures were emerging from the shadows. Chapter 5. The Siege of Haven. Panic seized Haven as the reality of their new threat sank in. Members of the camp, their faces etched with terror, turned to Captain Sarah Knox. "What are we going to do?" they cried. "Those things are unstoppable." From the lookout point, a guard's voice cut through the chaos. "They're leaving," he shouted. The defenders watched, tense and alert, as the wolf pack, now bolstered by two more undead werewolves, disappeared behind the hill. Maya, the camp's engineer, stepped forward with determination. "We need to reinforce our defenses. What can kill a werewolf? Silver, right? Do we have any?" "No," Sarah responded grimly. "Then we need to seriously reinforce the camp. It's already impenetrable to zombies. We need to make it the same for those things." The camp sprang into action, working fervently to strengthen their defenses. Hours later, the guard's voice once again rang out in alarm. "They're back!" The pack was visible again on the hill, but this time the Alpha began to approach Haven alone, its massive form exuding menace and power. The rest of the pack remained stationary on the hill. The Alpha's presence sent waves of fear through the camp. It was a terrifying sight, huge, muscular, with sharp claws and teeth, and an aura of pure evil. As it stood before Haven's gates, the Alpha let out a bone-chilling howl. "Hit it with everything we've got," Captain Knox ordered. The camp unleashed a barrage of gunfire and explosives, but the beast seemed unaffected. "Impossible!" they exclaimed in disbelief. Unhindered, the Alpha began to tear through the defenses, shredding through metal and concrete as if they were paper. In no time, it was inside the camp, wreaking havoc. Anyone who crossed its path was mercilessly killed, only to rise again moments later as newly turned werewolves, the lycanthropic curse transforming them. In the midst of the carnage, Captain Knox and a handful of survivors took a last stand against the beast and its rapidly growing pack. Death seemed certain as they faced the unstoppable force, but then, inexplicably, the Alpha ceased its assault. With a commanding howl, it led its newly transformed pack, now numbering over 50, back towards the hill to join the rest of the pack. The chapter ended with the survivors of Haven in stunned silence, surrounded by the remnants of their once impregnable sanctuary. The night echoed with the distant howls of the retreating werewolves, a haunting reminder of the new, formidable enemy that had risen from the shadows. The world of Crimson Dawn, Rise of the Shadow Wolf, had evolved into something far more perilous, where even the strongest defenses could fall before the might of the shadow-infused lycanthropes. Chapter 6. The Twisted Transformation. On the desolate hill, under the cold gaze of the moon, the newly transformed werewolves gathered. The Alpha, towering above them all, emitted a low growl, a command that resonated with an ancient, primal authority. The pack responded, the freshly turned werewolves instinctively lining up in an eerie formation. As they stood, the undead werewolf hybrids, creatures of a grotesque fusion of decay and primal ferocity, advanced towards the line. Their movements were disjointed yet purposeful, their eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger. One by one, they approached the newly turned werewolves, each encounter a harrowing spectacle. The scene that unfolded was one of chilling transformation. The undead werewolves sank their decayed teeth into the flesh of the new werewolves. Their bites were deliberate, a corrupting infusion that spread through the victims' bodies. The freshly turned werewolves convulsed violently, their howls of agony piercing the night as they fell to the ground. The ground became a tableau of transformation. The bodies of the fallen werewolves writhed as if in the throes of a nightmarish metamorphosis. Their muscles contorted, bones cracked and reformed, fur melded with decaying flesh. The air was filled with the sounds of snapping sinews and the sickened squelch of mutating flesh. One by one, they rose again, their forms now twisted into the abomination of the undead werewolf hybrids. Their eyes, once bright with newfound lycanthropic power, now glowed with a sinister, deathly light. They were no longer creatures of the night. They were monstrosities born of shadow and decay, an unholy union of the undead curse and the werewolf's curse. The Alpha watched the entire process with an unfathomable expression, its presence exuding a cold, commanding aura. This ritualistic transformation was more than a mere turning. It was an initiation into a new, terrifying existence. As the chapter closed, the hill was silent, save for the low growls and snarls of the undead werewolf hybrids. They stood, a formidable pack united under the Alpha's dominion, a new terror unleashed upon the world. In the darkness, their combined howls echoed, a sinister symphony that foretold a new era of horror in the unfolding saga. Days after the chilling transformation on the hill, a vast and unending horde of the undead moved across the countryside. It was a mindless sea of decay, swelling in numbers as it shuffled through the ravaged lands. This relentless tide of zombies, too numerous to count, mindlessly advanced, driven by their ceaseless hunger. Anything that caught their attention was inevitably consumed by their overwhelming mass. In their path stood a formidable assembly of undead werewolves, approximately 60 in number, under the command of the imposing Alpha. With a fierce snarl, a command more felt than heard, the Alpha signaled the undead wolves to engage the massive horde. The Alpha observed as his pack launched into the fray. The scene that unfolded was a macabre spectacle of destruction. The undead werewolves tore through the zombie horde with savage efficiency, their strength and ferocity far surpassing the shambling undead. It was a violent, chaotic clash, akin to a mighty wave eroding the shore as the zombies fell one after another to the raw power of the undead werewolves. Hours of relentless carnage later, the once formidable horde lay decimated, a landscape of dismembered and lifeless bodies. Yet, unlike previous encounters, no new hybrids rose from the fallen. The lycanthropic curse, it seemed, had run its course in the transformed zombies. The Alpha surveyed the scene with a glimmer of anger in its malevolent eyes. The Alpha's purpose was singular: to grow its pack by any means necessary. With the realization that the undead could no longer be turned into werewolf hybrids, the Alpha's focus shifted. Human camps, once mere survivors in this apocalypse, now represented the only means to bolster its ranks. With a menacing howl that reverberated through the bones of the undead werewolves, the Alpha commanded its pack to disperse, to scour the land for humans. The werewolves moved out, each taking a different direction, their forms blending into the night as they embarked on their grim search. The chapter closed with the Alpha standing alone on the battlefield, its howl echoing into the distance, a chilling declaration of its intent. The story of Crimson Dawn, Rise of the Shadow Wolf, took a darker turn, the fate of humanity now hanging in the balance as the Alpha sought to expand its nightmarish legion. Chapter 7. The Island Refuge and the Unlikely Saviour. In a serene contrast to the chaos of the mainland, a small group of survivors had found solace on a secluded island in the middle of a tranquil lake. They had constructed a humble but efficient refuge, complete with fishing traps, a small farm, and a makeshift ferry for quick trips to the mainland. This oasis of safety stood as a testament to human adaptability and resilience. Two members of this island sanctuary, Jake and Elise, embarked on a scavenging mission to a nearby town. They navigated through the deserted streets, entering a local chemist and various stores in search of medicine and additional supplies. As they moved through the aisles of a grocery store, Elise accidentally knocked over a display, the clatter echoing through the silent town like a beacon to the undead. Within moments, a large group of zombies, drawn by the noise, converged on their location. Jake and Elise hurried into a nearby building, barricading saw the door behind them. The undead banged against the barrier, their relentless moans filling the air. The door began to splinter under the assault, the situation growing increasingly desperate. Suddenly, a chilling howl cut through the noise. Peering out through a crack in the barricade, Jake and Elise witnessed an unbelievable sight. An undead werewolf, its form both majestic and horrifying, was attacking the zombies. It moved with lethal grace, each swipe of its claws and bite of its teeth bringing down one undead after another. After a brief but intense skirmish, the werewolf had cleared the area of zombies. It then turned its attention to the building where Jake and Elise were hiding. With little effort, it pried open the weakened door. The survivors braced themselves for the end. Unexpectedly, the werewolf snarled and backed away, allowing them a path to escape. In a mix of shock and relief, Jake and Elise seized the opportunity, rushing back to their ferry and returning to the safety of their island. Once back, they recounted their harrowing experience to the others. "It saved our lives," Elise said in disbelief. "That creature was our savior." Meanwhile, from the shores of the mainland, the eyes of the undead werewolf that had saved them surveyed the island refuge. Its gaze lingered for a moment before it turned and disappeared into the wilderness, heading back to report to the Alpha. The chapter closed on a note of unease and mystery. The actions of the undead werewolf had saved Jake and Elise, but the motive behind this mercy remained unknown. The survivors on the island were left to wonder about the true nature of these fearsome creatures and what the future might hold for their small haven in a world overrun by shadows. Chapter 8. Unlikely allies and divergent beliefs. Days had passed since the undead werewolves began their reconnaissance missions. One by one, they returned to the alpha werewolf, their silent gestures communicating the discovery of human encampments. The alpha, its features exuding a sense of grim contentment, readied itself for an imminent assault on the human survivors. Across the calm waters of the lake, a voice shattered the peace of the island refuge. "Hello," shouted Captain Sarah Knox, standing at the water's edge with Maya and 2 other survivors from Haven. "We need help," they called out desperately. The islanders peered across the lake, wary and cautious. "Who are you? Are you infected?" they called back. "No, but we need help," replied Captain Knox. After a moment of deliberation, 2 islanders set off on the ferry to meet the newcomers. On the shore, the islanders met Captain Knox and her group. The captain quickly explained their dire situation. Their camp had been overrun by an alpha werewolf and its pack. The islanders examined them carefully for any signs of infection before inviting them onto the ferry to discuss further. Once on the island, Jake and Elise shared their extraordinary encounter with the undead werewolf that had saved them from certain death. "We're sure they're friendly," Elise said, recalling the werewolf's unexpected mercy. Captain Knox interjected with a starkly different perspective. "There's an alpha," she explained, "one that's turning humans into part of its pack. It's not friendly, it's amassing an army." The revelation sparked a wave of fear and confusion among the islanders. Some were inclined to believe Jake and Elise's account of the werewolf's unexpected benevolence, clinging to the hope that these creatures could be allies. Others, however, were swayed by Captain Knox's warning of the Alpha's sinister intentions, feeling the threat of an impending attack. The island, once a haven of safety and unity, was now divided by differing beliefs. While some saw the werewolves as potential saviors, others viewed them as a looming threat to their existence. The chapter closed on a tense note, with the island community grappling with this newfound uncertainty and the question of whom to trust in a world where friend and foe were no longer clearly defined. Chapter 9. The Alpha's Assault. In the main cabin of the island refuge, Captain Sarah Knox sat in deep conversation with the island's leader, a resourceful woman named Rebecca. They discussed the swirling rumors of a distant settlement, rumored to be shielded by powerful vampires, possessing advanced defenses and weaponry. Perhaps they could offer help, Rebecca pondered, skepticism in her voice. But it might only be a myth. Their discussion was abruptly interrupted by a howl, deep and resonating, emanating from the lakeside. They rushed outside, along with the other islanders, to see the shore swarming with undead werewolves. Among them, a figure stood out starkly, the Alpha, its towering form exuding raw power, ancient malevolence etched into every line of its body. "That's the one," Captain Knox whispered, a mix of fear and recognition in her eyes. "The werewolf that destroyed Haven." The Alpha began its approach towards the island, walking with eerie calmness across the lake bed, its form emerging ominously from the water onto the island's shore. Panic erupted among the islanders as they scrambled to defend their haven. The ensuing battle was a desperate struggle for survival. The islanders fought valiantly against the Alpha, but their efforts were futile against such an unstoppable force. It rampaged through the refuge, its claws and teeth rending through any defense put in its path. Amidst the chaos, Captain Knox, realizing the futility of their fight, made a silent decision. She, along with Maya and another companion, slipped away, swimming quietly from the back of the island. Behind them, the sounds of destruction and terror continued to escalate. As they swam further away, they dared to look back. The island that had once been a symbol of hope and safety was now engulfed in flames, its inhabitants transformed into werewolves under the Alpha's curse. The Alpha itself stood amidst the destruction, a conqueror watching over its new domain. Captain Knox and her companions swam on in silence, each stroke taking them further away from the nightmare behind them. The chapter closed with the haunting image of the Alpha werewolf, its howls echoing across the lake, proclaiming the fall of another bastion of humanity. The survivors faced a stark reality. In this new world, dominated by shadows and terror, nowhere was truly safe. Chapter 10. The Quest for Sanctuary. Exhausted and grief-stricken, Captain Sarah Knox and her small group reached the safety of a distant shoreline. They collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, the horror of the island's fall still vivid in their minds. As they sat, regaining their strength, Captain Knox's resolve hardened. "We have to find this camp, this community protected by vampires," she asserted, her voice tinged with a mix of desperation and determination. "It truly is our only hope of survival." The scene shifted to the rumored sanctuary, a place where the reality seemed as unbelievable as the tales that surrounded it. The camp, nestled in a secluded valley, was a haven where humans and vampires coexisted. The elders, ancient, enigmatic vampires, watched over the human survivors with an air of solemn responsibility. In this unique community, an atmosphere of cautious harmony prevailed. Humans went about their daily tasks under the protective gaze of the elders, who in turn maintained a vigilant watch against external threats. The alliance, born out of necessity in a world overrun by darkness, stood as a beacon of hope in a landscape ravaged by fear and despair. As the chapter and the story drew to a close, the focus returned to Captain Knox and her companions. They set off on their journey, a quest fueled by the faint hope of finding refuge in a world where humanity was relentlessly hunted. Their path was uncertain, and the dangers they would face unknown, but their determination to survive burned brightly against the backdrop of a world consumed by shadows. The final words of the chapter hinted at the continuation of this harrowing tale. Crimson Dawn, Rise of the Shadow Wolf, would return, promising more twists and turns in a saga where the lines between savior and destroyer, human and monster, were forever blurred. End of Part 1, Crimson Dawn, Rise of the Shadow Wolf. Part 2, coming soon. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.